Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And we're wrapping up the National Football League and the Super Bowl, which took place last weekend in glorious Los Angeles, with Los Angeles Rams probably creating a Hollywood script at the end to deny the gutsy Cincinnati Bengals. I have Danny O'Brien and Simon Stokes with me. Lads, how are things?
Evening.
Good, Mark. How are things?
Very good, very good. I'm just recovered. I'll admit I was up until 4:30 eulogising Matt Stafford and Mr. Cup on Twitter. But what was your general feelings of the game, guys? I can't but feel a little bit sorry for Cincinnati that they got so close, but yet so far. Daniel, might start with yourself.
It's a bit of a weird game. I don't know what the rest of you thought, especially kind of I was good, like even into the second quarter, and how easily the Rams, when they got their second touchdown, I was going, oh, this could be any score, and then the Bengals coming back, and then all of a sudden it was like Odell Beckham's injury really did put the kibosh on a lot of what the Rams, I think, had planned and had set up. Him going off kind of changed things around for them, and I was nuts looking at the Bengals going, it's destiny with the way the third quarter started. But credit to both defenses, especially the Rams defense. They really did shut them down, and like Burrow will not have fond memories of this Super Bowl. And I think he created a record. He's the most sacked. Was he the most sacked quarterback in postseason history? I mean, you could see kind of he was the image of dejection leaving their locker room as well afterwards. But like the Rams, like even beforehand, and it was nice to actually get a prediction right. I'd said that the Rams front was going to really put a number on the Bengals offensive line, and it proved to be the case. It was the crucial thing. And being honest, I got that opinion and insight I learned my lesson from last year's Super Bowl, where even if you're a quarterback as good as Patrick Mahomes, if you're running for your life, there's not much you're going to be able to do. And it happened this year again.
Do you know, I suppose I'd agree with Danny there. It was a funny game. Like, even when Cincinnati were kind of up their few points and LA had to come back, I don't know, I always just felt that the Rams would have too much eventually. A bit maybe similar to the game that they played against the 49ers. Do you know, you'd have this feeling that they were going to come back. Do you know, one take that I took from the game throughout, I thought both head coaches, I don't know, did either of them call fantastic games? Like, to me, they looked like two lads that didn't want to lose the game rather than wanting to win the game. Like I was getting sick for a finish up with McVay, and he running the ball and it getting nowhere. And running down alleyways and going nowhere at all. And you know, even Zach Taylor, I think, let's say they got their touchdown after half time. Some things were going for them. They got their interception straight away after it. And it was almost as if he went into a ball with his play calling. You know, I don't know, it's tough to get to the Super Bowl. It's tough to win a Super Bowl. I wonder if Zach Taylor will look back in some of the play calling he did, you know, in the second half of that game and wonder, you know, what could have been.
Yeah, certainly. I think Cincinnati Bengals have to be given huge credit defensively. I mean, you're tallying up the numbers here, 43 yards on the ground for the LA Rams during the game. And we kind of mentioned it during the preview show that we thought this LA Rams team would be so well balanced that they would take this on the ground, they could go the air. But I would be with you, Simon, here. It looked like two head coaches that didn't want to kind of lose the game, which was a bit, I don't know, certain parts of that first half were very kind of mediocre. It did certainly kind of get exciting towards the second half of this match, but I don't know, a bit of nerves. I don't know, LA Rams being at home, a bit more pressure. I don't know, Danny, what did you feel regarding the Rams? It kind of did look very tentative, I thought.
Because it is the Super Bowl, and you get the feeling, and if you go through the last couple of years even, like there's been very, like, you have the Patriots Falcons that collapse, but you have very few kind of vintage. When it comes to finals, it's rare for it. Like, we're never going to get a Bills Chiefs type game in a Super Bowl because there's just too much at stake, and it's like just given because it is a Super Bowl, and like with what was the pressure that was on, like even with McVay, like you could get the feeling with him as well. Kind of he was realizing we cannot, like the pressure was starting to build on both sides. And like with the Rams, for them to have actually get that touchdown towards the end. But you can see there was it's pressure. It is a pressure situation. It's the biggest. If you're looking at a single sporting event, the only thing that comes close is the World Cup final. And even World Cup finals, they're never vintage games either. All that matters isn't how you win it. All that matters is you win. And you could get that definitely came across for both. Granted, the Bengals' second touchdown should never have been allowed. There's if anything, the biggest backlash there has been from this game is the officiating, because even the Rams game-winning touchdown was a pretty dubious holding call, but the Bengals, how the hell was Ramsey not? How did he not get it? It was a horrendous call by the officiating team, because he clearly he was grabbed by the face mask, and that even resulted in him losing balance. It was. For it to be decided on something like that's also a little bit annoying. It was weird. It was just because the playoffs had been so good up till now for this to have matched them. It was going to be an anticlimax, I think, regardless. But I think at the end of it, the Rams were the deserved winners, and for Donald to potentially be his last game play in the NFL, for him to be the person who, much like the NFC Championship game, for him to be the person who decides it in the end is rather fitting from that point of view.
Oh, absolutely. And somebody can come in here. I think defensively for LA, they were absolutely outstanding. I thought, Aaron Donald, superb, Von Miller, but I think as a unit, look, poor Joe Burrow looked, as you said, Danny, at the start of this podcast, the figure of dejection come the end of that game. He had more than 2 seconds to make a decision to throw that football away, because he was constantly looking over his shoulder left and right for an incoming LA Rams defender to come and pounce on him. It was a disappointing display from the offensive line of Cincinnati, but I suppose we have to give huge credit to the LA Rams in terms of how they executed on the day. Yeah,
I'd agree, Mark. Do you know the thing with that Cincinnati offensive line? Do you know they held out all right in the first half? Do you know they were they weren't doing too bad. I suppose again going back to the San Francisco game, do you know that LA Rams defense? It kind of grows and grows and grows as the game goes on. It almost appears like that they nearly have more energy at the end of the game than the start. Do you know, if you take that last sequence of play, I was fully expecting when Cincinnati got that ball back, 2 timeouts at about 1 minute and 40 seconds. I was expecting him to get up the field and put McPherson in a reasonable position. And do you know what? They had that bit of a play, this Jamar Chase up on the left hand side. He got a bit of a turn on Ramsey, got up the field. They were in great field position. They threw a fella that's he's been mentioned on and off, but maybe not an awful lot, was Eric Weddle. He made a play in that last sequence that they're all talking about Aaron Donald. If you look at it, Burrow's throwing the ball. An easy enough pass on the slant to Tyler Boyd. Boyd makes 8.5 yards. He gets up to, was it about the 48-yard line or something like that. Would have been an easy first down. Only Weddle, who's going around for 3/4 with a torn pec, makes this, lays him out, makes his tackle. That all of a sudden Cincinnati were under pressure. I watching it, I wondered why they didn't take a timeout and just regroup things, because the very next play, you might remember, Burrow threw this ball down the sideline. He wasn't on the same page with Chase. He held up, so he stopped his run. Burrow's after throwing it long. All of a sudden, they have 40 seconds left, and for the life of me, I do not know why they gave the ball to Pirine to run it on that 3rd and 1.5. Just didn't make sense to me. If they were going to run it, I'd be giving it to Mixon. And then you have Donald making the sack, or effectively making the sack in the last play. But there was a corner out there, and he was lined up with the tight end Yasuma, and he made a ridiculous play. He almost left Yasuma out. T. Higgins was coming in behind him. If T. Higgins caught that ball, it would have been a first down. It would have been in nearly field goal position for McPherson. But with that the corner did a job on him. That had made Burrow hold the ball for that second too long. Donald's on top of him then, so it's all over, But it's those, Donald gets the headlines for being, and then look, in fairness, he had a great game. He gets the headlines for making that big play at the end. But that corner, who I don't even know his name, on the outside, did a job there on T. Higgins that, he catches that ball. It could have gone for a touchdown. But I don't know, going back to, I think Zach Taylor made some of the plays that he called finishing up that game. I just can't understand them. Like it's that 3rd and 1.5 to give it to Peter. For the life of me, I can't figure why he would have done it. And the fact that he threw the ball in fourth, or went about throwing the ball in 4th and 1 after, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like he was gaining nothing by running that ball in 3rd and 1. He might have gotten his first down. Sure, he had to use a timeout anyway, and he was still out of field goal range. Do you know? I don't know that he panicked. Like as I said, I was sitting at home watching it. I was fully expecting this to go to overtime. One fellow we haven't mentioned, Von Miller, had a great game.
Super.
Got his 2. Like Von Miller's going to be going into the Hall of Fame at some stage. Got his 2nd Super Bowl ring. He's up to 4.5 sacks in Super Bowls now, which I think is tied joint leader for sacks in the Super Bowl. What an acquisition he was in the middle of the season, really, wasn't it? He was a great addition to that team.
Oh no, like the Rams did. They went out. They got him. They got Beckham, and like Beckham, you could say had Beckham. If Beckham, like his injury, it's a pretty horrendous one for him to be getting to. But had he not been injured, I think the Rams would have just walked away with it, because they had the Bengals, they had their corners, their safeties under all sorts of pressure because they didn't know who to cover. Was it going to be Kupp, who ended up being MVP, or Beckham? They had 2 or 3 threats that they could pass to easily, just kind of balance out between them. Beckham's injuries where things really started to. It was like the Rams started going, now we're in a little bit of trouble because so much got weighed on Kupp. But again, Kupp, like he deservedly was MVP. I know people were mentioning, did Donald earn the chances? Like he had a good game, but Kupp's the guy who got the 2 touchdowns and he got the winning touchdown in the end. And generally, it's the offensive side that is going to weigh that up. But I mean, even they mentioned with Donald, he was rookie defensive player of the year. He's been a multiple defensive player of the year. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He's a Super Bowl winner. Only Lawrence Taylor has done that in his career. And like they were trying to compare the 2 of them. But like Donald, maybe not all time, but he's definitely up there as just one of the best defenders. He's the best defender of this generation, it's safe to say. Definitely.
And just going on your point about Beckham, Danny, I like with Higbee out, I'd say that more than half of the playbook was probably Beckham, ball to Beckham. They knew that Cooper Kupp was going to get an awful lot of attention. So like I'd say that there was an awful lot of plays that were going to be going directly through Beckham. The very minute Beckham went down, McVay panicked. Like the run game, it was going nowhere.
I saw a reaction was like Cleveland Browns fans when Beckham got the touchdown. They were just like it was just totally just the fact he scored more touchdowns in the handful of games that he had with the Rams. And like you're looking at Cleveland, and like when people saying Cleveland, the Browns are going to Brown, they've one season okay, but now they're kind of going back into that mold too, and they got a ton of questions. But I mean, it was for what he's been through, and the fact that kind of it's an ACL tear. How he's going to be like being like for wide receiver to go back after that kind of an injury. Yeah, it's just. He's got the ring, and from what they're saying, he could re-sign with the Rams at a reduced rate again. Like they could just perk up his contract like they did this time around. But for him to win it's great. But God, the future for him is very uncertain because it's such an unfortunate injury to get for his position in particular.
I think he got $750,000 for half his season, Danny, with the Rams. So he signed for reasonably cheap money,
The bonuses, I think he got like $1 million nearly per postseason, or in the playoff games. I think it was $1 million he was getting per game. So that's where they had it very much incentivized for him to play as he did.
I think he got the $750,000 in Bitcoin as well. So it's half its gone.
We just checked there. It's now worth 75 cents.
Yeah, fluctuates with the markets there, guys. So no, interesting points. Just want to go on to Matthew Stafford, guys, quarterback for the LA Rams. I think fair to say, he had the highs and lows, but my God, when he had to produce it, he produced it in spades. I mean, they did have to get Cooper Kupp into the game. The drive previous to their game-winning drive, ultimately, Stafford looked to vary the game and wasn't getting anything from the other offensive attacking line units. But in fairness to Stafford and to Cooper Kupp, my God, that was a final drive. Of final drives, really. A very memorable one to win the Super Bowl. Danny, your thoughts?
I mean, like you could say with Stafford, there was questions throughout the entire year around how. Granted, I remember like it was first game, first drive, he threw straight for a touchdown. You're going, this is looking well. There was just those questions around him the whole time through. But I mean, he's justified it now. they did the joke, he was 12 years in Detroit and he has as many Super Bowls now as Aaron Rodgers. But in the year that he's been with the Rams, he's guided them too. He was brought in for a job. He's done the job. He's got the ring. There's not much there's not much more he could do from that point of view. And like, he'd steered them through, especially with the Buccaneers. He steered them through that game very well. And as you said, the final drive tonight, or for that game as well. Cooper Kupp, they said, has a wide receiver ever had a year like he has? He was just incredible. They had the combination of just several players were just able to reach their peak. But like, the Rams went out, made that trade, got Stafford in, got rid of Goff. They brought him in because they wanted to win. They win. Case closed.
As I've been saying for the last few weeks, I've always liked Stafford. I think he's very tough. When he was at Detroit, fair enough, he had Calvin Johnson, but for a lot of the years there, he was trying to fairly muck. I think he's tough. Even the other night, I don't know, there's an awful lot of negativity he gets. Even on Twitter and stuff, people saying Stafford's been Stafford when he threw the interception. The interception he threw in the first half was effectively a punt. It was a third and whatever. He was like, if he doesn't pick up his first down, they're going to punt it back to them anyway. So there was no issue with it. And the second interception was just bad luck. It was probably bad.
That wasn't on him.
No, it wasn't on him.
No, certainly not.
That was bad. Look, do you know what that was, Danny? That was a ball that Odell Beckham would have caught if he was on the field. Probably a play that was designed for Odell Beckham, but just he was off injured. No, I have time for Stafford. I think he's very good. There's probably question marks over a lot of these fellas when they call it quits. Like, Stafford is 12, 13 years in. He's like a fella. No, I know he'll get paid if he plays on for another year or two, but he's after reaching the heights now where he wanted to go. It's debatable whether or not he'll come back. Fantastic player. As I said, I have great time for him. There was never any question. He has the arm. He can make. That the pass he made to Kupp there in the last drive the other night. I watched the video on YouTube. It must have been yesterday, and it was a no-look pass. Kupp is running past him. He's looking one way. He's throwing the ball the other way, and it's getting into Kupp's hand. Unbelievably talented player. And it says a lot about him that they were. You were saying last night, Danny, about the viewers or the viewership over in Detroit for their previous game. I'd say there isn't anyone in Detroit that has a bad word to be said about the fella.
No, you spend 12 years in Detroit in that mess, and you deserve everything you get from there. But it's I think even the discussion, when I mentioned about, say, the future for the players, with Donald, even that there's rumors around that he could retire, and there's people going, seriously, there's the rumor in around that, this could be a big, we're talking about transitions for teams. If Donald does decide, right, if he's going to finish at the top, if he retires, that team's going to go through, and they're will McVay even stay? Miller, will he stay? Stafford, is he going? We could see a huge transition through this team if Donald does. Granted, I think Donald, he has 3 more years and $22 million per year to earn on that contract, so that might stop him. But that's the great thing with this offseason. There's so many questions for so many teams. We're not going to be bored.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go through that, guys. The free agency, particularly LA Rams. As you kind of alluded to, Danny, in previous podcasts, the strategy of LA Rams is go win now. They will have quite a few big marquee guys to literally kind of decide their futures, really. And I don't know, Simon, if you have any kind of thoughts on that in terms of anyone that you think. But it's LA as well, nice part of the world. In the 70s. It's not like you're in Green Bay or New England in December or whatever, trudging up, for a playoff push, So I wonder, retaining a Super Bowl, would that kind of entice a few guys to stay on it one more year?
Going on what you were saying there, Danny, the Sean McVay question is an interesting enough one, really. Do you know what is this? 35 or 36 now, is it? He's going to be in a position now where they're not going to be able to pay everyone. They could be looking at multiple retirements. They basically don't have a first-round draft pick for a couple of years. The Sean McVay one is interesting. His legacy now is made. He'll get a job anywhere he wants to go, probably in college. And he can go back to, do you remember McVay when he came went to the Rams day one? And do you remember he was, Goff looked like a superstar with some of the plays he was making. I think the Super Bowl loss to the Patriots a couple of years back made McVay kind of, I suppose, look at the schemes that he was planning, and kind of he went a bit into himself, from the point of view of, he was a lot more careful in what he was calling. I wonder, like, McVay is getting married now over the summer and things like that. Like, is he a kind of fella that could go to college? I don't know. Like, you can get a college job there and spend the next 20 years. And like, if you go to a good enough college, it's like having 10 first-round picks every year.
And it's the problem he has too, kind of like he's that young and he's won a Super Bowl. It's like for a lot of them, like that's the peak. And like you mentioned, if he does end up going to college, I mean, he could get it, and I think it's one of the most insane things with college football in particular, that coaches can get like 10-year contracts. The contract could be rescinded after 3 years, but they're guaranteed all that. Like, I heard $500 million is currently being paid out to coaches across all the different collegiate sports from contracts that had to be terminated because they were fired. It's insane from that. But I mean, he can. There's been talk or discussion around. I mean, he's been around the Rams now for 4 years, 2 Super Bowls in that time. That's pretty good going. But like he might even kind of go like, you win a Super Bowl. The only way is down from here, because I don't think the Rams they're not going to be able to do what the Bucs did last year. They kind of retool and just go back at it as is. There is going to be just change and flux in there, and it's the model they've taken. But I mean, 2 Super Bowls in 4 years and winning one of them. Although I can imagine, I think I mentioned before, Arsenal fans must have been delighted seeing Kroenke lifting up the Vince Lombardi and just being like, you're investing in that team and you want them to win. That's lovely. And just granted, I think they had to pay St. Louis 750. Them and the NFL had to pay St. Louis 750 million for relocating. So. Yeah, it was, but I mean, he doubled. Once you go to LA, he just quadrupled the value of the franchise straight away there. So that's probably the biggest downer of the whole thing, seeing somebody like Kroenke winning in the end for doing what he did to St. Louis.
I suppose a major, almost their business model in trying to win that Super Bowl. They moved to the new stadium a few years ago. It's made Inglewood relevant in the Los Angeles market almost. Even though the Chargers obviously didn't make the playoffs this year, I think they'd be reasonably happy with the result. It's making that area, it's making football relevant in LA again. It's trying to. There's so much distraction. There's so much other thing going on in that market. It's and you have decent enough basketball teams and even other sports in the area. At least now you're looking at a situation where Inglewood is relevant in the greater scheme of things in that area. I don't know. I see there Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings signed him today. He was the offensive coordinator. No, I know, look, McVay is calling the offense, whatever. But, McVay even said it in his post-game interview that he was going to lose some of these coaches over the next few days, that he knew was going to happen, that they'd be getting promotions. But, like with all these great teams, they fall apart at some stage. I think LA, the whole thing will be accelerated because of just the business model that they have. But they've won their Super Bowl. As I said, they've made Inglewood relevant. They won't mind if they're not, competitive for the next whatever many years. Like, they'll still probably be reasonably competitive next year if they can hold on to a couple of their vets. But I'd say that they won't be devastated if they're not a playoff team for the next 7 or 8, 9 years.
I think the most interesting legacy from the Rams win could be, will other teams look at what they have, how they've used their drafts and how they've used their picks. And like you said, just kind of mortgage the future for now and use those picks to get in, proven, tested, rather than hopefully potentially getting in. Because like the fact even that Burrow would have been the first quarterback to win a national Heisman and a Super Bowl kind of shows you how many things need to go in a line for it. And it's just like the fact that Cam Newton was the only one who came close to it. I wonder, will other teams look at how they use their draft capital, and will they go, screw this, we might get a good player in the future, but rather than potentially getting somebody, why don't we go for an Aaron Rodgers or for a top caliber quarterback or wide receiver or those key areas. And I think even like with even just briefly, even with Cincinnati, the one thing I would take away from it is they need to basically break the bank. They need to get the biggest, meanest, and toughest offensive line that money can buy, because Burrow is the future of that franchise. But if he has another year of the way things are at the moment, he's not going to last very long. So they need to get in security for him from that point of view, because otherwise they're going to lose out the greatest asset, and it could be another 30 years before they get back to another Super Bowl.
100% agree with you, Danny. In an awful lot of the talk after the game, the last night was Cincinnati had this great quarterback, this great receiver, they'll be back. They'll win ones in the future. They're in the AFC.
They're in the AFC North, where teams tend to have pretty good defenses that will target your particular players as well. So
Danny's flashing a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey here as he said that. So.
A notable TJ Watt Defensive Player of the Year Pittsburgh Steelers jersey as well. No, like there are going to be linebacker, there's going to be edge rushers who are going to make mincemeat of their offensive line just on a regular basis. And I mean, that's the thing with the AFC North. It is the most probably attritional of any division out there. I mean, if he's going to have that line in front of him, he's going to be running constantly. I mean, he's not going to be around for very long if they don't do something.
No, he's not. And like even with that, they still have to go through Mahomes. They still have to go through Josh Allen. You know, there's Lawrence. You never like if you look at the model of how say. The Rams have won this year, and to lesser extent last year, because like that Buccaneers team was absolutely full of bets on small money contracts to win a ring. If Jacksonville go away and if they say to themselves, right, we have our quarterback here, if we can get our ducks in a row here, we have every chance, you know, and pay a couple of fellas. If Jacksonville have decent money or cap space again next year, I think if they can pay a couple of fellas, like there's no reason why they can't go deep in some or deep in or into the playoffs in a couple of years' time as well. I'd say like Cincinnati now have about 60 million in cap space. But the only thing is Burrow has to be paid. I don't know if it's this year or next year. But
next year.
Let's say I'm going to assume Burrow is going to be in the 25 to 30 million bracket to pay him. So that still leaves you with probably they probably have 30 million in a general year of money to be kind of playing around with, assuming the cap space doesn't go up. So, like, you can get a decent offensive line in that. I'd be inclined to go with what you're saying yourself there, Danny. I'd be paying for the offensive line straight away. You know, draft the defense. They obviously need to tidy up. They need to get a corner in the draft this year. Whatever's left to them, I'd be inclined to go either with an offensive linesman or a corner in the first round this year because they need to tidy up. Like Eli Apple. Look, I know he made the plays in the previous game. He made the big play in the Tennessee game, but like, sure he was. I saw a thing the other day about about how he was the first blind player to play in the American football. Like he went totally astray for Cup's touchdown. Like, sure, he had the clue where he was. Like, they need to go out and get a corner in the draft. But they need to like this year, if they want to be contenders next year, they're going to need to go away and play offensive line. Like I know.
They'd have two. There was even with Burrow's contract, it's 2 years that they have to maybe like if they get an offensive line for 2-year contracts and just be like, right, if they go all in on now, because at the same time, like having Burrow there, that's gonna entice defensive or offensive linemen to go there too, just to be able, and like they can just get somebody as a left tackle. They like you said, Simon, they need to fix that as well as the cornerbacks, and if they do, then God, the AFC North's gonna be fun next year.
Oh, it could be great next year, yeah.
Absolutely. And even looking at McVay, I think some of his comments after the game was a more exhaustion after a big season. Has been head coach of the LA Rams now since 2017. He said, we'll see, to Dylan Hernandez in LA Times. I think it's, the LA Rams organization are trying to bat that away, but he has expressed interest as well. I think Simon and Danny, that he wants to go into broadcasting. He wants to start a family. He wants to spend time with the family. The fact that he's now 36, he's achieved an ultimate aim of coaching a team to the Super Bowl. I think that's probably, that could be the intriguing subplot here for the LA Rams to secure their head coach, because if the head coach goes, I think other guys are definitely going to follow suit. And I think Von Miller, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, is he a free agent this offseason?
I'm not too sure off the top of my head there. I'll have a quick look. There's a very good chance he is, because generally the way these teams work, they are very short-term contracts.
Yeah, and I mean, the LA situation as well. I mean, the Dodgers, LA Lakers, Anaheim, Angels, various franchises, baseball and basketball really have ruled the roost in LA for a long time. And I mean, I think it's been great. I think it's great for Goodell and the NFL that Los Angeles is back on the National Football League map here. So
yeah, he's a free agent. He's an unrestricted free agent, so he can go wherever he wants. Oh, it's funny when you mentioned basketball. I'm having so much fun watching the Lakers burn at the moment. Oh, it's bliss. It's absolute bliss.
Denny, you probably have it up there. What age is Von Miller now?
He's 32. I thought he was going to be older than that. Bloody hell, he seems to have been around forever.
Yeah, he's another few years in him.
Oh, I mean,
he has been paid. Like, does he go out and get another contract? Like, where does he go? Do you know who has the money for him? Do you know? Might come to New York. Never know.
Maybe the Jets, Simon. Would that be a nice shrewd little investment there for Von? You know, the Big Apple.
They all love going to New York and spending money and playing rubbish football.
Although I thought it was funny, like they were saying, like how going into this year was that the Bengals were ranked 28th, and I had a quick look and just went, Simon, there's a very good chance if history repeats itself, then you'll be looking forward to a game in Phoenix this time next year because.
As I said to you before, I think the Jets are in a good position to do something next year, but they will leave me down. But if they draft well, you never know. Like, they have money to spend as well. They've got 42 or 3 million, I think, to spend. Like, if they draft well, you never know. But, like, do you know, as I said, I think the last, like, Cincinnati have 60 odd million. Cincinnati really exceeded where they should have been this year. You know, Cincinnati shouldn't have been getting to the Super Bowl. No one gets to the Super Bowl with 60 million in cap space. It doesn't happen, you know. Look, hopefully, like, Burrows, it seems like a likable enough kind of a fella. Hopefully, for his sake, they do something. Like, he could have done the knee the other night. That could, like,
it looked like he did.
Yeah, it looked like he did. And you know, if he was facing into a 6-month rehab because the boys couldn't block for him, Jesus, like I don't know.
I did
coming back to the off season next season again, or the preseason.
I did see a video, or it was one of the drives, and Donald, and he's just basically the guy who was up against. It was like a. Do you ever see the ones like kind of where like an elephant just tosses a hip out of the way? He just walked him. He just walked him back and then sacked Burrow as well. Like it is one area the Bengals seriously need to work on just to get. I mean, we've said it before, but just need to get that sort of too. But they're like, you're looking through the league, and like this is probably one of the things why the NFL has such a big following just globally too, because it's so even or so evenly bad. Like outside, they mentioned kind of the Patriots. That was just this weird phenomenon that's never going to be repeated. Like the last couple of years truly have shown how difficult it is for you to do sustainable success, because it's such a level playing field. The fact that the Bengals can get, like, imagine somebody in the Premier League being able to do that. Like it just doesn't happen. But the NFL, because of the way things are set up, it is so even. And even the fact that we have a Patriots, Jets, and Steelers fan as well. Like, things are so even from that point of view. So many teams have so many questions going into this offseason, and God, there's going to be so much written.
Maybe, guys, end of season awards. We'll call it the Hawkeye Sidekickers. End of the season awards, very flashy name. Might go down through because I know the announcements were made, you know, in the lead up to the Super Bowl. Maybe get your take on a few of these. Who would be your best coach, guys, overall?
I mean, you have to give it to McVay. I mean, the Super Bowl, like, it's almost like you nearly give it by default, and just because of the pressure that he was under. Granted, he was able to get the pieces together. McVay, like, I mean, aside from that, the one or two who did get the awards, like, they were somewhat justified, but the playoffs then kind of showed maybe not. And even for the Bengals to make it, but then the play calling there, yeah, I'm just going to give it to Super Bowl winner McVay. What about you, Simon?
Yeah, I know Vrabel got it. Got the regular season award. Yeah, I don't know. I'd nearly give it. Yeah, I suppose you could give it to McVay. If you're giving a head coach award, I suppose you'd give it to him. I suppose defensive coordinator there with the LA Rams. You know, being able to scheme up. Now I know he had the players to make the schemes and all that kind of thing. You know, like, you're probably looking at him. Yeah, I suppose you'd have to give it to McVay. There's no one really sticking out to me other than that. Nope.
Yeah. I'm a romantic at heart here, guys. Valentine's Day weekend just ended, so I'll probably give it to Zach Taylor, to be perfectly honest. I think no way in hell anyone would have predicted Cincinnati Bengals to get this deep into the playoffs.
I think he was favoured to get sacked first this season.
Yeah, I think that was good money this time last year. I heard there was a few things about Chase and Burrow, but Taylor was the next port of call if things didn't go well for the head coach that he'd be out of a job after week 5. So I'll probably go with Zach Taylor, but as you say yourself, maybe the calling at the end, particularly the 3-0 before the game winning drive, I think that should be sticking with the Bengals head coach there for a bit during the summer. Defensive player of the year, guys?
Actually, I thought Donald was going to win Defensive Player of the Year, being completely honest, given what he did in the playoffs. I'll put it like the best way I would do it. He can have the Super Bowl ring. I'm gonna say Watt. The one thing you can say with TJ Watt though is he did create some crucial turn. Hell, he had the Steelers fans thinking we could win in Kansas City with the intercepts or just with the way he was playing. Like he was a monster throughout the entire year. And I'm gonna be biased. I'm just gonna say Watt from that perspective. But I think Donald's a once in a generation player. He's going to be looked at and he's going to be compared to the greatest there's ever been. And if anything, Donald, never mind what. I thought Donald was going to be. I know you can't Watt's good, but Donald's given the position he's in, and now he's just changed the game. The fact that when teams are going up against the Rams, that they had to go right. What are we going to do to stop 99? You have to say Donald. He's 99, isn't it?
I go for Donald. I always think there's a bit of a flaw in the way that the NFL do their, in the season awards. As far as I know, they do the voting between the end of the week 17 and the start of the playoffs. So they get the voting done in that week. I suppose even when you think of it from a GA point of view, when it comes to all-star teams, things like that, it's nearly always weighted on the last game or two at the end of the year. Sometimes I think that, you have your regular season players, but sometimes the regular season players can be playing in dodgy enough divisions and things like that, and they can look the part. Like I know Aaron Rodgers got the MVP for the league this year. When you look at the playoffs after, you wouldn't have given it to him. I agree with Danny there. I'd say Aaron Donald. Obviously, Watt had a great season, but I think Donald is an exceptional player, and I think the league will be missing. Will be an awful lot lesser if he does go away and retire over the off season.
I'll probably go against the grain. I think TJ Watt had a superb season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's fascinating. It's the 4th Defensive Player of the Year award from the NFL honors list. It's gone to a Watt brother in the last 10 years, which I think is phenomenal. Again, matching Michael Straton's single season sack record as well. I think it's been an interesting. That was an interesting kind of area. I suppose we go to the QB guys. Who did you have kind of come the end of regular season playoffs? Simon, might start with you first.
Oh, sure. Look, I said it there a couple of weeks back. At the end of the regular season, I was a big Aaron Rodgers man. But that playoff game was a complete disaster. And he has to show. I know the special teams went against him, but he has to shoulder a fair share of the blame himself. In the regular season, he was fantastic. Even when he had his bit of a lull with the COVID, I think we all, and it would definitely Green Bay fans, appreciated what they had when they saw what the alternative was for the week or two that he was off with the COVID. I'd just question marks what he's going to do with himself. As Danny said, we have a great off-season in front of us. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to stay up in Green Bay. I'd say he'd retire rather than going back with a team that won't be contenders next year, So, from the point of view of regular season quarterbacks, go for Rodgers. Postseason, probably Joe Burrow. He did. I know I've said I'm a big fan of Stafford, but Joe Burrow exceeded what an awful lot of expectations there would have been of him in the postseason. So I'd probably mention him.
Yeah, he's certainly come back a player of the year, isn't he, Joe Burrow? After that knee injury in his rookie season. But Danny, thoughts there?
I'd have to say Brady, and I just given for the age he's at, for him to have been top in the stats in so many areas, for it to have been it was his best year ever, and wasn't it? Passing. And sorry for bringing up the game against the Jets, but the final drive he did there, that's the definition of him, and he nearly did it again against the Rams. For him to retire, he is the greatest to ever play the game, and for him to retire at that level as well. he was only 2 games away from going back to his 11th Super Bowl. Was it 11 or 12th? He was going to go for I think, and during the playoffs as well, I think. Yeah, I'd say Brady just from that perspective. I think if I'm looking for quarterbacks for the next one, if Josh Allen can replicate what he did in these playoffs, good God, the level he was at. Has a quarterback ever played as faultless as he had and still lost? For the level, if he can keep that level up and if he can keep progressing from there, this year, I think it is, we've seen the evolution, or it's the introduction of the next generation with Burrow, with Allen, with those kind of quarterbacks coming through as well, and kind of with the retirements. But I'm say quarterbacks, Brady, and just with Allen in the postseason, what he did. He didn't do anything wrong. Was it in the Patriots game? Was it he said he had more touchdowns than the Patriots had drives? you can't ask for a more perfect performance than that. I think Allen is just somebody to look forward to over the next while. It's going to be so much fun.
I completely agree there. I suppose we can conclude this with offensive player of the year from your, excluding quarterbacks here. Who do you feel was kind of your kind of standout pick?
Sure. Like it's obviously going to be Cup. Cup had a fantastic season. This is a fella that was a third round draft pick. Like when you look back on it, like that was an amazing to pick him up in the third round, and what he has turned into since. Like he's an amazing player. He pulled that team kicking and dragging for that last drive last day. Like when you compare when McVay was in that last drive and they had that 4th and 1, like he gave the ball to Cup on the end round, and like if that play goes against you, you look desperately foolish and you probably lose the Super Bowl. But he was putting full trust in his best player. He was getting the ball into his best player's hand, and his best player did the job for him and did the job for him all the way up the field and got the touchdown at the end. But that was all year. Cup is a fantastic player, playing out the slot on a lot of occasions. Some of the touchdowns he got during the year were absolutely fantastic. Like he's a great player, as I said, deadly value in it as a third round draft pick. It shows that you can pick these fellas up. You don't have to be going out in free agency picking these fellas up. If you're savvy in the draft, you can pick. You can do the job. But I thought he was offensive player of the year, and look, God only knows the way the Rams are going to go, but at least they have one position tied down for the time being anyway.
Exactly. Danny?
If I had to pick just going throughout the year and how he progressed, how he developed and turned into just an absolute force of nature. Given how before in preseason he was struggling to catch and see the ball, I think Jamar Chase, I mean, my God, has a rookie ever been able to do what he has when he was getting, like he went from this guy seems good to this guy is really good to the reason the Bengals got to where they were is kind of Burrow's strategy of I'll just throw it his direction, he's going to catch it. Didn't he have to be accurate? It just had to be in his vicinity, and like even in the game the other day, he almost pulled it out again. I mean, he ran rings around Jalen Ramsey, and Ramsey's one of the most kind of elite, like not quite Revis Island cornerbacks, but he's still one of those players who would shut down anybody he's up against. But Chase, I mean, for the entire year, I know Kupp had an incredible season, but for your first year rookie wide receiver to do that, and just to see him linking up with Burrow after the LSU days as well, like this year really did show how good that LSU team was that won the national championship. I don't think that, like, for all the years the Crimson Tide have won titles, none of their teams have ever been able to have the impact that this group has had on the NFL in such a short period of time. Like, I'd have to go with Chase, and a lot of that has to do with the fact, as a Steelers fan and even seeing them against the Ravens, he just tore every single team to pieces in the AFC North too. And he, unfortunately, I can see him doing it for a significant period of time too, because the Bengals, there was a lot of questions about should they have gone after another wide receiver, but they've got they like, if you're looking at the player rookie of the year, like what he did, Micah Parsons as well for the Cowboys, rookie linebacker. You knew he was special even preseason looking at the documentaries. But yeah, I'm just going to have to go with Chase, and that might just be showing my division bias there, because we're going to be facing him and losing to him a lot over the next few years.
Yeah, I think it was incredible numbers off Chase given his rookie year, wasn't it? I mean, 1,455 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns on 81 receptions. So it was. But yeah, I'll go with Cooper Kupp. But I think I mentioned this to you, Danny, and Simon as well. The NFL draft, another guy being drafted so deep in a draft comes back and literally produces the highest level. Is the draft all that it's made out to be in terms of the science? The sprints, how much you can bench press, can you catch a ball, that sort of thing. It seems as if certain kind of teams may need to kind of review their NFL draft strategy, I would say, after this performance off Cooper Kupp, particularly how they could get a guy of that magnitude to slip through their net. Yeah,
it's funny. Like, I think one of the offensive linemen from the Rams the other day, I can't think of his name. He was undrafted. Like, so they picked him up in free or in after as an unsigned free or whatever you call it, undrafted rookie, and turned him into something. Like there's some fantastic players out there. Like they all have athletic ability, but it's just if they land in the right spot. Like you take some of those guys, you land them in the wrong scenario, you land them in Jacksonville, you land them in New York, they're out the door in 2 years, But Kupp lands in the right spot, right scheme, and he's some player now.
Exactly. Yeah. I suppose, guys, looking ahead next season. I know this is very early days. A team that we should be looking out for next season. Just an early tip because I know free agency has only just started. Certain teams have only got back into kind of spring kind of preparations today. I see Buffalo Bills have tweeted and we're away again. They've started preparations. Any kind of outside tip here? I mean, I heard certain pundits go Cincinnati Bengals, but was more on a whim than really a definitive. Would there be a team looking on the outside here that may have an impact this year?
I'll take a punt on someone. The Raiders. The Raiders were only within a score of the Bengals in the playoffs. Had a complete disaster in the middle of the season. Showed unbelievable character at the end. Josh McDaniels comes in there. I know there's question marks over his head coaching ability from his Denver time, but at the same time, he's coming in there. He likes Derek Carr. I give the Raiders a chance of doing something next year. I know they're playing in a tough division, but at the same time, I think there's question marks over Kansas after this year. If the Raiders get their thing together, and a bit like what happened in LA, where their new franchise in the city, they got themselves started early and got their quick success. I don't know. The Raiders have a similar business model, maybe going forward and trying to get a win in Las Vegas early doors.
Danny, any thoughts?
So, they've been mentioned before, but if you look at the Denver Broncos, if they sort out quarterback, then yeah, they're just one of those teams where they're thereabouts. And if they were to get quarterback sorted out, potentially one team I could see crashing and burning would be the Cardinals. Just given the rumors there's been, and I didn't even actually realize this time. I wouldn't be surprised if Cliff Kingsbury does lose his job pretty early in the season, because they've highlighted year upon year upon year. His record when it comes to the business end of a season is absolutely horrendous. So I could see the Cardinals kind of crash and burn. And given the talk around Kyler Murray at the moment, that's not a good look for any team. And even when Kingsbury got the job originally, there was a lot of discussion about how did this guy get the gig. And even when you were trying to, even when you mentioned, Mark, you're trying to pick a team and you're looking at this just going bloody hell, because there is going to be so much change. One or two key things could happen, but you're looking at, even with the Broncos, the capital they got, say through trades, etc. If they do get quarterback fixed, but there's a lot of teams out there, if they do get quarterback fixed, I mean, if I look at Pittsburgh, if they do go out there's talk of James Winston going to Steelers potentially, but if they do go out and if they do get a veteran quarterback in, straight away, given some of the players that they have on, say, the wide receiving core who are currently there, there's nothing to say, and given the defense they have, there's nothing to say that they can't push back again. But there's all this uncertainty looking at the Ravens. I mean, I saw Lamar Jackson, he's already back training today. I'm after seeing the videos of that too. I mean, the Ravens were the most, has a team ever gotten the slate of injuries that they did. Now, maybe a lot of that has to do, maybe Harbaugh has to go back and look at his practices. I mean, I know the Ravens have a very kind of grinding style, but if that grinding style results in you losing two players in one training session and having to then cancel the practice, they may need to review it from that point of view. And it seems to be the AFC this year, compared to the NBA and the Western Conference. The Western Conference and the NBA is a meat grinder. There's so many high caliber teams. I'm looking at the AFC. There's no one standout team who could see maybe the Chiefs, but the Chiefs, their invincibility seems to be so much. There's going to be questions around them given the way this season went, but if a team was to get one piece right, if the Broncos get quarterback fixed, they could be a challenge for anybody.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Danny. I think the Ravens were very unfortunate with the injuries. I think they probably are a very good, solid bet, I think, next season. The only other one that I can probably think of here, and I mean, I think it's very much a hype hunt here, is maybe Miami Dolphins. And it's just purely on, their mid-season form. I know it's kind of patchy, but you're dependent on. I've rubbished the NFL draft, but they're, to get various guys from college system into the scheme to recruit wisely, there may be a team, because I see New England definitely on the wane. I'm a Patriots fan. I think there's an end of an era here after that Buffalo Bills loss.
We wish.
Well, but. Yeah, maybe that's an outside bet, but I think Baltimore maybe, and I think the FC West looks stacked as well, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, various charges. I think Broncos probably work in progress. And as I say, guys, so many intriguing plot lines with free agency, quarterback positions, players looking to move on, retirement, stuff like that, and all that to look forward to in the off season.
I would have mentioned the Chargers, but the Chargers seem to have just this incredible knack of being able to shoot themselves in the foot. And I think everybody's just going to enjoy watching the Cowboys. They'll get the 10, 11, 12 wins, full of vibe, full of energy, and get knocked out in the first game of the playoffs. And McCarthy will probably still be head coach. So, hey.
Exactly.
Just on what you said, Danny, about Kingsbury, I saw a stat there recently. If you look through his professional career or in the pros and when he was in college, is it something like after the first 7 games of the season, his record is it 8? Is it
8 losing years? Once he goes through the last 5 or 6 games, he's had losing seasons in 8 of them. So
his record is something like 1-4 is his average record.
Yep.
After the first 7 games of any season, it's ridiculous.
Which is why I could see him losing granted with the Kyler Murray stuff at the moment, you're just going, whoa, like it's the fact that it's the organization that's saying it. And like a lot of people are saying like a big thing behind it is his big contract's coming up soon, and they're kind of going, oh, they don't want to pay it, and you're going, oh, like the Cardinals went into this year with a lot of vibe and energy around them, and this season it's amazing how quickly things change.
Yeah, where does he end up? Though, back in the baseball field?
He could. Won't be with Oakland though. They look like they're going out of there. So
yeah, yet another franchise looking to move on. So all to look ahead. Guys, this has been a lengthy one. We haven't even mentioned Eminem halftime show. And he may have been tired, or he may have just taken a knee. We just don't know. Don't maybe find the shoot. But lads, it's been an absolute pleasure the last few weeks to really kind of look through the AFC, NFC playoff picture. Really enjoyed your company, Danny and Simon. Again, Danny, do you want to give yourself a social media plug while you're here anyway?
Yeah, sure. So if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's Danny E.D. O'Brien. Similarly on Instagram. I've had Mark on once or twice recently for previewing the Six Nations. It's going pretty on track for Ireland so far. My predictions for it. So if you want to check that out, 10 to 11 Saturdays, I go through sports ranging literally from Tai Chi to MMA to American football to rugby. So if you want to check that out, by all means do.
Great stuff, Danny. And Simon,
I was
a social handle or something soon enough, pal.
No, Mark, the first night I was on with you and you asked me for that.
My phone number is.
I was from North Cork in Tully's, and a fella said it to me. He goes, it was as if I was saying, if you want to contact me, stick it in the post.
Stamped address envelope to P.O. Box.
But yeah, so no, guys, absolute pleasure. Anyway, we'll wrap it up here, and I think with US collegiate football coming to Dublin and various NFL, so we'll definitely catch up then. But
free agency is going to be fun.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely, guys. Thanks for your company anyway, and look, might do this again pre-season and run the rule over the NFL then. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.